It's hard to describe exactly in one word what this past weekend was all about. Exhilarating, inspiring, exciting. It just was incredible from a sporting standpoint and so many different fronts. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Bury Your Bookie. It's a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday. We always peel ourselves off the mat with the great Mike Jones, who was invigorated by all of the things that happened. And I know, Mike, you're a big golfer. You were just talking about the fact you mentioned the Lee Trevino line about pressure is when you're playing a $10 Nassau and you only have a $5 bill in your pocket and you're putting on the final hole. And what we saw in the U.S. Open certainly was inspiring. I mean, it was almost Tin Cup-esque. It looks like J.J. Spaun is going to play himself right out of the tournament in the first six holes. Shoots a 40 on the front nine. He's 5 over through 6 holes and blows his lead that he had. He was 4 under, one of a handful of guys. I think there were, 3 guys under par going into the final round. Burns is also struggling a little bit. Many guys are coming out of the pack. And then we get to the back nine after a 2-hour rain delay. Course conditions are becoming more and more bizarre. The rough was reminiscent of what you see, that thatch that you see at a British Open. You thought you were playing at Royal Troon or something, where you need a machete to get out of it. And this guy battles back and then in dramatic fashion holds a 64-footer where it looked like he could just as easily have 3-putted from that distance, with a rain-soaked green getting even more damp as he's standing there under an umbrella up until the minute he takes the club back, and ends up winning the thing at 150 to 1. But a couple of things come to mind. Not only the drama of that story, but officiating certainly intervened and was an overwhelming influence on what happened over the weekend, both in baskets and in golf. So let's start with the U.S. Open. I know that's one of your favorite subjects.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I mean, you couldn't ask for more. But did Sam Burns literally get burned by not being able to get some kind of relief when he's standing in a puddle? Prior to that, every time a fan favorite, and everybody likes this guy. He's been a very distinguished gentleman on the tour, Adam Scott. He spits on the fairway, and they allow him to tee the ball up instead. And then 2 officials wave off any kind of relief for Sam Burns, and he proceeds to shank the next couple of shots and ends up losing any chance he had to win the tournament. What did you think? And then it also reared its ugly head with Scott Foster, known as the Extender, as he extended Indiana series. And the play that really stands out for me was that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander jumper from the left side, little Earl of Pearl Monroe type of thing, coming down to the baseline on the left side, making a jumper. But before that, he shoves the defender. I think it was Neesmith. Shoves him into the paint. He then takes 5 steps, and there's an official staring right at it. It wasn't Foster. Calls nothing. And relative silence coming from the announcer's booth on that one, because how people didn't become overwhelmingly alarmed that Indiana got hosed on that particular play, a turning point in that game, certainly. Officiating really loomed large. And I know you've been talking about this. There's going to be a revolution at some point.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just for the gambler. When it's the refs taking away your bet, what do? You have the operators now charging you in Illinois. They're going to go charge 50 cents every time you make a bet. So you're going to add your percentages of how hard it is going to be to win. And then you get things like this. I think what it is, it's disenchanting. I think it basically will take the better out of the play. And then if they do, the ratings go down for these sports. So you really got to watch. But my thought with the referees, and I see this all the time, is they're bailed out by the replay. The out of bounds calls are just amazing. I refed games with guys, big guys, not 6'10", 6'7" foot like these athletes, but 6'5", 6'8", real guys who play D1 ball. And I moved my head to get in front of a wall to see the foul to do that. It just seems like they stand in one spot and they don't move. So that's one thing. The Sam Burns thing to me is I play golf. Casual water is when your stance gets in there and it starts pressing water up. So you can't dig your feet in. It's a wet track anyway. Your feet can slide. It's all in your mind. He goes to 2 officials, wants to get a ruling. The ball's showing water. Every time he flips the club, water's coming up. I look at it like this. It's all about TV. It's all about the money. I think they wanted it to continue. They wanted to get it in. They brought these guys back. It would still look bad in rain. Why not stop it and go back tomorrow? The conditions are right. It looks like it's going to be exciting. There's 6, 7 guys in it. You get 5 or 6 holes. You start it at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Golf Channel or NBC gets it. They'll rate. Guys will watch it. People are out there. It's just I didn't understand playing under those conditions. On a golf course, it's basically impossible anyway.
Well, and beyond that, I mean, the rough, it was just short of having a Venus flytrap
Yeah.
at the other edge of the fairway. The ball would literally disappear, and we saw any number of guys tragically impacted by
Mhm.
that. And you had to think that the wet conditions played a role. Guys that had played earlier in the day, even though they were subjected to the rain delay, where it got where they had the majority of their holes contested under better conditions. So there's
Mhm.
an unfairness aspect that surfaces there. And then how many guys did we see just collapse there? Burns,
Yeah.
Terrell Hatton also ended up hacking his way through Thatch on the final couple of holes, and they're all right there in the mix. But I don't think it takes anything away from the drama and the story, the tin cup like story of JJ
Yeah.
Spahn,
Yeah. I
who
mean,
it
yeah.
started to surface a little bit. It wasn't like
Yeah.
this guy was Bob Dylan time, a complete unknown,
Yeah.
but he had some good results this year. But he was
Right.
150 to 1
Yeah.
to win the tournament, and you had to think that that money was going up in smoke after 6 holes.
Yeah. Yeah. Scotty Scheffler's low number of plus 290 adds to the bigger numbers to these guys that Spawn might be 100, 150, 80 to 1 if Scheffler's not in the tournament. Everybody's betting it. They think that. So it raises the other guys to get a betting lines to be attractive to people to take that long shot. My thought of Spawn is that I've seen him play. I watched him at he took second at the Honda or the at Palm Beach at the PGA National. The guy can play. I watched him. You see him in contention a few times. He only has a couple wins or one win, I think, behind it yesterday. But can they do it at the Open? Can they do it in these conditions? And Kevin Kisner told a nice story about how he got him in the locker room one day and said, "You're too hard on yourself." It's probably one of my problems. I tendency to lose my temper a little bit at myself, not at anybody else. But it's like you got to try to control that rage on the golf course. It's a frustrating game. And here's a guy with all the talent that just couldn't get over that hump because he was taking himself out of it mentally. So I think it's a great story. And I'll go and say this, Jeff, and I believe this. If that round, if he was tied with McIntyre going into that putt, it would have been one top three greatest putts of all time.
Oh,
Probably one.
yeah.
And it's to me, you got to break when Hovland's ball ended up behind him, and we were talking about that. Golfers on the phone. I said I think he won. I didn't think there was any chance of losing once he got a chance to look at the line and see it. Making it, whole other story. Unbelievable putt. Great way to end it. Brought a smile to my face in an Open that was frustrating to watch yesterday because I was watching scores implode, and dealing with, watching your couple of your bets go up in smoke. You bet, Victor Hovland at 7-1, went in there and he loses, get beat up. And
Our buddy,
yeah,
the professor, who joins us every Friday, had Hovland at 55 to 1
yeah,
before the tournament.
yeah. I mean, it's just, these are great, bets that you can make with live betting now that make it really interesting. Come down the stretch, your game, your guy might be out. You picked on Thursday, missed the cut, but you have a chance to you have a chance to come back and play it. So it adds all this excitement to it. And then you just saw the conditions. So my frustration was I wanted to see the golf come out and be fair for everybody. The conditions do it. I mean, I also looked at this and said, when I would like to go find this record out, I will sometime if we ever talk about this again. But the last pairing shoots a combined 17 over. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So when you look at that and you see that, someone's going to come up. I also thought that when McIntyre started getting closer and he was +3, I said to my buddy, who plays in these conditions? Scottish golfers play in these conditions,
Yeah.
play in rain. So I thought he had an edge, and he ended up shooting 2 under the last 4 holes. So I said, oh, +1's going to be in. You think that's a shot. And then J.J. Spahn does the same thing, playing fantastic, making birdies. 17th hole was great. He had a great drive on 17, had a real good look for eagle. And then you're thinking, you know what, this is a nice story. And then Kisner tells his story, and it's kind of like, wow, this is really cool. And then when he makes it, you just have a smile on your face, like, wow, this is really great.
They showed him many times because it involved Tiger Woods when he sank that putt. It wasn't anywhere near that distance to go ahead and knot things up in the U.S. Open with Rocco
Mm-hmm.
Mediate.
Right.
And of course, my friend Mike Donald from Hollywood, Florida, lost or ended up in a playoff, an 18-hole playoff with Hale Irwin, who held a 50-some-odd foot putt to get himself into the playoff in 1990. You think of Larry Mize chipping from off the green there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the final hole, but it pushed him past Greg Norman in the Masters that one year. And then Norman was snake bit in a lot of these tournaments.
Yeah.
Bob Tway hitting out of the trap, and that was either a PGA or a U.S.
PGA hold out.
PGA, and he holds out from the trap, and
Mm-hmm.
leaps over Norman on the leaderboard and ends up winning the tournament. These were classic shots.
Mhm.
Had that been the one that outright won the tournament, now he only needed a two putt, but there was no guarantee under those conditions he was going to do it. Maybe
Yeah.
he gets a good read off of Hovland. That had to be fortunate, but
Yes.
it was very easy to see that guy three putting from that distance, leaving the thing
Sure.
7, 8 feet short
Yeah.
under really tough elements, and ending up somehow either in a playoff with McIntyre and possibly losing what may be his one sort of tin cup opportunity to
Yeah.
win the U.S. Open. So that was great, and then officiating came into play, of course, in that Indiana game where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, literally shoves. I think Neesmith was the
Right.
defender into the paint. Guy's looking right at it, and then he takes 9 steps before he sets up for this jump shot, and the shot goes in, and it was a pivotal turning point in the game. And Indiana goes down, and then on top of that, Matherin, who had been brilliant in game number 3 with his 27 points off the bench, misses 3 out of 4 free throws, and
Right.
all those people like us that were screaming, "Hey, good idea! Why don't you take Indiana to 6 points? It seems phenomenal. You're getting
Yeah.
this kind of ammunition to play with, and you end up losing by a point." Anybody that comes up to you and says, "I told you Oklahoma
Yeah.
City was a cinch," they literally should be subjected to any kind of brutal, savage beating that you could
Sure.
have, because
Yeah.
there was no way to. That was a case where you were right about everything except that you ended up losing your money.
Yeah, it's just pressure again comes on the moment. You felt Indiana like all the pressure was on game 3, watching OKC offensively just be stagnant, not moving the ball 15 seconds off the shot clock before they even think about what they're doing. And now they come out and defend as good as you'll see defending Indiana and throwing Indiana into a loop. Halliburton's giving up the ball 5, 6 seconds into the shot clock, not getting it back to late. Then he's trying to dribble around people. Yeah, it's a weird game watching it now because it's just understand it, but that play is the gather. If you bobble the ball, it's not a walk. It's get the ball, then you get to take your steps and gather. So it's a changed game, and it's doing it for offense, and I understand that. But for guys like old guys like us who play, and the guys I talk to, unfortunately, in my age, we don't understand this game. We just don't understand how it's officiated this way. It's like they should almost break this down and have a 30-minute video of how what the refs are doing and what they're seeing to explain it for the guys who played. Because if you watch the old, the old, I mean, the Celtics Lakers 30 for 30 has been on, and I'm watching that game compared to what I see today. The guys were getting mid-range open. Yeah, the defense was a little bit more lackadaisical. It wasn't as high intensity. It wasn't strong. It wasn't that holding, grabbing only on dead ball plays. But you wonder that these guys don't want to take 15, 16 footers when they get them. They have shots in a layup, but they say, "Oh, I got a layup for 2. I better kick it out for that 3 because if that looks like a 50% make, it's a better play." Like, what are we thinking about as you play the game? And then you're bumping the officiating into it. Now it gets to a point that we understand it. And the key factor is gambling is thriving this. It's driving these ratings. It's doing all this. Do we feel like we're getting the raw end of the stick when these things happen? That's what I fear moving forward. Is that for the game and sports itself? I mean, football will last through it, but these other sports, I don't know.
A lot of this needs to be clarified.
Yeah,
When you were watching Adam Scott getting all of these breaks, everybody likes the guy. It would have
yeah,
been a nice story if he had won at 44 years old.
hmm
He's won one major in his career. He's always been a contender. He's played in like 96 straight. But literally, he would spit on a fairway, and they'd give him one of those giant tees that you get at
yeah,
a novelty shop and say, "Here, tee it up." And for them to deny Burns a chance to move his
yeah,
ball. And because, like you said, I mean, you know they're forcing the issue to keep the TV program going, and they didn't
mhm,
want to have to defer it to a Monday when nobody's watching. People are back at work, and so they lose any chance they had to have some massive audience. And I thought it was dramatically unfair. And like you said, I mean, you're getting the crap beat out of you if you don't admit that you walked on that play with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander if you're at the
right,
park. And it ends up being an extremely significant play, swings the balance of the series in favor of Oklahoma City, who are laying 9.5 tonight, Mike Jones. So let's get to the matter. You've had a fairly even Steven series.
mhm,
Oklahoma City now actually has covered in 2 games, and the other 2 games they lost outright.
right,
The cover in the game, I saw a handicapper that was screaming and yelling how brilliant he was, and as I said, you should almost be ashamed to take the money in
Right.
this case because you were dead wrong about everything except you ended up with some officiating and a couple of missed free throws by Indiana in the end game, covering by a single digit. What do you do with the 9.5 tonight? And
You
what
know,
has loomed as a somewhat even, far more even series than we thought it was going to be. And
yes.
obviously, the fact that it's 2-2 would demonstrate that.
Yeah, just tough to lay 9.5. I like that it stayed 9.5 because that was where it was in game one. If I go back to my thinking, do we forget about it? You think OKC's the better team, showed it down the stretch. Does that carry over? Momentum, the home crowd, the comfort of being playing at home. Indiana's been good on the road, very good after a loss in these playoffs. I think they're undefeated against the number. I might take a shot and grab 9.5. When in doubt, take the dog. That's dogs for cash. My late dog cash, who I used to talk about all the time, is can't lay 9.5. You can't lay 550 on a money line or 500 on a money line when you're doing it. Just too many strange things happen. You don't know what they want. Do they want a game seven? You never know. So to me, I would kind of lean a little bit toward the 9.5. Um, that's just play. I don't know that I love it. I like the hockey tomorrow a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say Indiana just keeps it close, and there's just pressure on OKC now, and they haven't been great. Yesterday they had 2-1. They had to have it. It seemed like Indiana was a team that felt it at home. Maybe the change of scenery does something, and now they adapt again. And I like Rick Carlisle as a coach. I think they'll find something. Keep it close. May not win, but maybe keep it close.
If you think back through history, I know you're a sports historian as well, been a fan your whole life, as you're about to hit a magic number here in the upcoming days.
Yeah,
And I've been at it longer than you have.
yes, you have.
Fortunately, my number is blinking on the board there with the Stewart's inquiry because it's a pretty high one. And if you asked me when I was a kid if I would have taken it, I would say, yeah, if I made it to 74, that would be a miracle, especially with my early days here in Miami, which happened to coincide with the cocaine cowboys invasion and a certain powder that seemed to be very addicting. Most people would not have predicted I'd still be here today. But that being said, I mean, late season acquisitions. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I would feel great if I had Brad Marchand to be
Oh,
the MVP of the finals right now. Sam Bennett's going to get consideration. I don't know that you would put Bobrovsky in there. He was among the favorites, as obviously Connor McDavid was winning, even though he was on a losing team last year. But he unless they do something really dramatic in the next two games and win it, you have game 6 of the series coming up after the Panthers won on the road. Marchand has been brilliant. I'm trying
yeah.
to think of a late season acquisition any team in sports history that has been as just unbelievably fortuitous as this one has.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking he had to be a bomb to win the.
80-1, 80-1 to start of the finals.
How does he not get it if he has anything to do with the outcome in Game 6, which many people
Yeah.
are anticipating what would be the final game? Because if you were looking at the series on balance and scoring it as a fight, you're at least 116, 112 favor the Panthers. They have led for the predominant portion of the 5 games that have been contested so far. I think it's an outrageously lopsided margin where the way they've led for like 140 minutes out
Mhm.
of 170 or whatever it's been. But I'm thinking the Panthers are going to be strong coming out in game number 6. I don't know that Edmonton has the answers at this stage, and I would love to have a ticket on Marchand to be the MVP.
You would. It was 80-1 to start. I think it got down to 11-1 after game one. I think when he scored it. Uh, wow. Watching him, just seeing the difference, just the grind, the puck, the stick handling, the puck, just drive, always in the right spot, it seems like, good forechecker, grinding, doing it all, veteran player, won a cup before, bring him another one. Just, it's been a phenomenal story to watch. And he started off so slow that probably why you got 8-1 on it is that they didn't see this coming. And then he starts, when the money's on the line, here he is going crazy. I love him to watch him. I think it's been fun. I would be surprised if Edmonton takes this game. I think they would realize going back for a game 7, although they've proven they won 2 on the road. I think it would be a really tough spot to head back there for game 7. Does the bus get tipped over on the way to the arena, the rink over there?
So something have to change in the way these games
Yeah,
are contested. I think for me to see them winning, even though obviously it's possible, but I mean the Panthers just look like a better team.
yeah. That's what you're seeing. I mean, the Panthers had 20 goals in all 7 games last time. I think they have 22 now after the first 5 games. The offense has been better. I think the problem we go back to, which I thought Edmonton could overcome in the series, was the goaltending. And now you have Picard coming in after you yank Skinner, and Picard struggles the other night. And now it's like, what's in their head? Do they have to play more defensive hockey and stop them, which leads to less breakouts? I mean, one of the great betting stories in this, I think, has been the total has been 6.5, which is only in 35 years. Only 3 totals have been 6.5, and that was in the 2012 or 13 series between the Penguins and the Blackhawks. And all 3 of those totals that were 6.5 went under. All 5 of these have gone over. So I guess it's maybe you look at the 2-line pass and you look at the empty net starts a lot earlier than it did then, maybe in the last minute and 20. Now I think they started sometimes just under 3 minutes to empty the net, thinking to get it. So you look at these totals and you see 6.5 again. It's like 5-0, just same thing as OKC. When's there an under coming? Does Bob show up and there's an under coming in this game? But to me, it was 145. I see 160 now. I think you're going to see 170. Get the Panthers while they're hot. I say they close it out.
That's what I'm thinking. Marchand looks like Dwight Freeney on skates with those spin moves that he's making. The swim move with the stick and getting inside of the defender. And this happens a lot. And there's one reason I like the Panthers in game number 5 was that you see this often where the backup goalie comes in and looks good in relief of a starter who's struggling. The number one guy is struggling. Skinner has been up and down. He was on a pretty decent streak before this series. Hasn't been very effective in the series. They yank him. Pickard comes in, does very well, keeps him in game 4. They end up winning it, in spite of him giving up that last second goal in regulation. Very fortunate to have come out with that because Bennett had a shot that hits the pipe after Pickard had blown what would have been a glove save and goes off the high part of the crossbar and then comes out instead of going in. They end up going on to win that game. But how many times we see that? I think we saw this in the Carolina series where they brought in a backup goalie and then they started him the next game after he had a decent run. And he looked gave you every reason to believe why he was the backup goalie to begin with.
Yeah.
That might have happened with Pickard in the series. So I don't know. They're going to be at a disadvantage from a goaltending standpoint either way, even though Bobrovsky has not been sensational. He's been good enough to go ahead and put the Panthers in a position to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Kind of interesting from that standpoint. All right. I know you're a big baseball bettor. And how are the odds going to be swung tonight with Shohei Ohtani making his return to the mound?
I heard 1 inning, so I don't know how they're going to be, but it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, Jeff, have we seen a player like this in our lifetime? I don't know. We didn't get to see Babe Ruth.
I guess it was just.
This is just an amazing whole story to watch. I will be tuned in to see how he throws and see if you get him going against the Nemesis Padres tonight. It's going to be just so interesting to see what he does. Does this, with the Dodgers with 14 pitchers on the DL, does this kind of help them and get them back on track? Only a 2-game lead over the Giants with a big win last night that they came back and won. I think it's fun to watch. I just think he's an amazing player, so I'll be tuned in. My big bet so far, which has been kind of cracking me up a little bit, has been Clayton Kershaw. I watched him the first time he threw, and I saw that the velocity was down. Breaking ball didn't look right. I said he's going to get shelled. The Angels shelled him for a little bit. But ever since then, he's been lights out. But yet all 6 games have gone over. Getting a 7-0 lead to win the first 5 over, and then it's 10-0 in the 7th inning. And yet, if you have the team total on the Giants, you get a walk grand slam to go over in the 9th inning on Saturday night. So you hit an 11-5 game while I was sleeping. I was like, wow, look at that. So you get a little lucky. But Kershaw's been great. But you ride these kind of trends that happen in baseball. It's going to change, just like OKC won a game and maybe the game goes under tomorrow night in the final game 6. When you see these trends go 5, 6, 7, and 0, it's hard to get off them. So those are the things I'm looking for this week. But tonight isn't interesting because Alcantara is back against Philly. Now the line is only plus 101. Now why would that be? Unless they think he rode the ship. He finally had a really quality start.
He's 2 in a row, Alcantara.
Yeah. So you might like him a little bit tonight. I think the line's dictating that. So I would probably lean a little bit Florida. Big trade with Rafael Devers going to the Giants last night. So
How does that impact the
well, I
overall?
mean, it helps the Giants. Obviously, they get the bat they did, and then when you heard the conversations of he was upset with Bregman coming in and taking third base, he didn't want to go play, so he was very disgruntled. So now you last night you're looking to see Harrison pitch, and you like him, and you list the pitches. Now you have no bet because right before game time, within minutes, he's in the bullpen. They say goodbye and the trade, so he goes out. So they get a Hicks and Harrison and a couple of minor leaguers, but it looks like the Red Sox are trying to load up on pitching. So Giolito's had a couple of good starts in the last time, and now they think, wow, the Mariners are 180, 190. Maybe getting a locker room problem is a good thing for the Red Sox. Maybe they leave after, getting out of there with the Yankees with a couple positives. They go out and they get a win in Seattle on the long flight out there. And then probably the last game I looked at, which just slipping my head, was
And you froze at the time. There you go.
yeah, it'll come to me. He got me talking about the trade, so I went off on the trade.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, both of these guys they got, the Red Sox, I'm looking statistically, weren't exactly lighting it up. Harrison was 1-1, 4.66 ERA, 5.6
right.
ERA, and Hicks was 1-5 with an ERA that looked like an Exana Bayou blood alcohol level, 6.47. Not exactly blowing something that is going to help you save money on an attorney. So it wasn't like they. I mean, it was kind of like as you get older, your friends and acquaintances list, Mike Jones, where it's addition by subtraction. And yeah, I mean, for Boston, it seemed like that was going to be the approach. So we'll see how that impacts things. But yeah, that was interesting. Not surprising to see that they moved on him. That's for sure. Oh, you froze on us, Mike Jones, right at the moment of truth here. So hopefully we can get you unlocked sometime before we close things out. But it appears that we might be in Wi-Fi hell here on Bury Your Bookie. So anyway, interesting tonight. Ohtani going for the Dodgers. I would imagine if he only pitches one inning, I don't know how much that impacts the price. But certainly from a curiosity standpoint, that'll be great. Not sure what to tell you. We ended up taking one on the chin. There you are.
I lost you a little bit. I just,
You look good there. All right. Did you figure out that other game that you were going to play? Or
yeah, I was just. It's a small door. Well, I'm going to pass on it because I can't think of it. I'm going to go with the Marlins and be happy with the Marlins tonight. And
first series sweep they just accomplished.
yeah, and a good one too
Like
because they beat the best starter there. Gore was pitching okay.
Yeah.
And they went out and they got a win, and they held on to a big win on Friday night. So yeah, young teams like this get things like this happen. The Angels went on a run earlier; we were on top of that. So yeah, maybe ride the Marlins a little bit. Philly, the fact that they're only 110 tells me new starter for Philly, guy that's just moved into the rotation due to injury, and they got their ace back a little bit. Maybe the Marlins pick up some momentum here.
Unreal. You can only wish that the Marlins were the Rays. How the Rays keep doing this year after year is beyond comprehension. They've been spectacular. I'm thinking this that if you see the phone ring in the bullpen, or well, I guess if you see the Marlins manager get on the phone and Alcantara's out there and he's got shut out through 3 2/3, that there's a pretty good chance that phone call has nothing to do with getting somebody up in the pen. It will be strictly about the fact that Alcantara's been traded at that stage because you know that eventually they're just going to dump everybody. But he's a good guy and been a real positive for a franchise that's been in the dumps. You're assuming that he will be traded before the season is over. So it was nice to see him bounce back and maybe at least have some value so that the franchise can get a couple of prospects that might be eligible to be traded about 6 years from now.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for the reminder. It was the Orioles.
Okay.
Against the Rays. When you said the Rays, I said, that's it. It's the Orioles. The Orioles are playing really good ball. They were the playoff team last year. They're starting to bounce around. They get a sweep against the Angels this week. I know the Tampa
We lost you again there.
goes out and sweeps the ballpark. I like where the Orioles are going, so we're going to take the small dog again with the Orioles.
All right, we're going to get out of here before the weather turns foul.
You got it.
Kind of like the U.S.Open. Mike, always a pleasure, my friend. Good luck
Thanks.
with all your plays. That's Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen. And very interesting. As I said, I don't know what to do with this. I'd be tempted to take the points again with Indiana because they've been overlooked entirely in this series. And I guess you have to check the officials. The Scott Foster factor is looming large as it always does in the NBA. Thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure. That's Mike Jones. For Mike, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll catch you tomorrow on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.